Yo, what's up, guys? Figured I would do a quick live stream now that we got eSports added to Odds Jam. Hopefully, find some good plays. So we'll just kind of go through some plays. I mean, no reason to make this any more complicated. So you can see my screen right here. I have Underdog Fantasy, Prize Picks, Parlay Play pulled up, all the different fantasy sites. And what's nice about eSports, compared to other sports, is in esports, there's a ton of games, right? There's always a ton of games. You can see right now on Underdog Fantasy, there's thousands of different lines. There's thousands of different player props that you can bet on. And Prize Picks has the exact same thing, right? So Prize Picks has the exact same stuff, all these different players. So I'm not sure why it's only showing one player. But if we go back here, tons of different players you can bet on. Long story short. So one strategy, and, if anyone has any questions at any point, if I, don't look at this enough, what's up, guys? If I don't look at this enough, anyone has questions, I respond, pretty quick over email. So you can feel free to email me. But one strategy that's effective is called middle betting. So basically in middle betting, you're just looking at a market that's kind of inefficient and you're taking advantage of inefficiencies, line discrepancies. So for example, you can see here, this homie Ekas, his line was 2.5 on Underdog Fantasy. Prize Picks has his line at 1.5, right? That may seem small, but imagine an NBA player. I mean, if you think in terms of percentages, imagine an NBA player. His line is 15 points on Prize Picks, and it's 25 on Underdog Fantasy. You'd be like, wow, that's crazy. That's a massive discrepancy. It's almost double, right? So, long story short, all you're doing is it's kind of a low risk strategy. You're taking the over on the sports book with a lower line, in this case, Prize Picks, and then you're taking the under on the sports book with a higher line. So you don't need to know anything about esports. This doesn't relate to esports. This relates to data, right? If this guy has exactly 2 points or 2 kills in map 1, then I'm going to win my under 2.5, and I'm also going to win my over 1.5. So this also, you don't need to use OddsJam, pay for OddsJam to do this. This is just if you have some free time and you don't want to pay for a product, that's completely fine. What you can do is just pull up Prize Picks, pull up their esport lines, go to Parlay Play, another fantasy site. So I included my refer a friend codes below. If you're going to sign up for any of these sports books, they all offer an $100 refer a friend bonus, $100 sign up bonus. So like Parlay Play, on your first deposit, all these sports books are trying to get you to sign up. They give you an $100 deposit match when you first sign up. Underdog Fantasy, Prize Picks, like all these sports books offer $100 deposit matches. So, if you want to make $100 tonight, you sign up for Prize Picks, they give you an $100 deposit bonus. Same thing with Parlay Play, everything like that. So let's go back here. What's up, guys? Would you respond? Yeah, I'm going to respond to Twitter DMs. I just have there's just a lot of them. So I've been kind of dreading it, but I will respond. And I respond to emails as well. It's just been a little busy this week. But long story short, all OddsJam does, right, is it just takes this data and tries to point out the line discrepancies. So this isn't something you need OddsJam to do. You can literally go to Prize Picks, go to Underdog Fantasy, scan through these lines, look for big discrepancies, and eventually, you'd probably stumble upon this Ekas play, and you'd be like, dang, his line's 2.5 on Underdog. It's way lower, right? It's almost 50% lower. It's 1.5 on Prize Picks. So what I can do is I can, capitalize on this market inefficiency, take the over, take the under, and if he has exactly 2, you're going to win both bets, right? This is data-driven sports betting. You don't have to know anything about esports. You don't have to know anything about League of Legends. Doesn't matter at all, right? So long story short, we're going to look for some bets. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of reload this tool, and we can kind of see, okay, what other discrepancies are out there right now, right? These lines move pretty quickly. So you can see the first one. There's only 2 sports books posting this League of Legends line. Is you can try to pronounce that name. I'm not even going to bother. Sazekalad. His line is 3, it looks like, on Underdog Fantasy. So imagine an NFL game. Underdog Fantasy has the total at 30. Prize Picks has the line at 40. What are you going to do? You're going to hit the over 30 points, the under 40 points, right? So you can, I try not to make these just like an odds jam ad. There's lots of good products. And you can also find these discrepancies manually. So one product I started using, which is actually kind of how I got into esports betting, it works a little differently than OddsJam, but it's called Daily Grind Fantasy, which is another pretty good product. And it kind of does the same thing, right? There's no BS. There's no handicapping. There's no trying to sell you VIP picks or any BS, right? It's literally just showing you the data and showing you the discrepancies between sports books because the data never lies. So Sazekalad, his line is 4 on Prize Picks. It's 3 on Underdog Fantasy. So I want to take the over 3 on Underdog. I want to take the under 4 on Prize Picks. I loaded up my first pick. I feel like a lot of people think, sports betting or trying to find an edge is super complicated. You're really just looking for value in the market. You're looking for discrepancies in the market. And I've explained this before, but if you don't, if you're betting with your gut, that kind of means you think you're smarter than everybody else because it means you think you're smarter than the market, right? And these sports books, they invest millions of dollars in their ability to set lines. They have hundreds of employees monitoring their lines, trying to keep everything in check. And also they have betting volume, right? So what I mean by that is if everyone starts to hammer, let's just say this guy, Lot, if a bunch of sharp bettors start hammering his under and Prize Picks keeps taking bets on the under, they're going to bump down the line to 2.5, right? So sportsbooks also can move around lines due to supply and demand. They have access to betting volume, what bets are even being placed. So that's why it's so hard to bet with your gut is these sports books, they have better models than I could ever create, than, no offense, you could probably ever create. So really the only way to beat them in a logical way is to kind of scan for discrepancies in the market. And one example I kind of have given before is the price of Facebook is currently about $309. You don't have to know anything about Facebook. If your friend told you, hey, I don't want my Facebook stock anymore. Can I sell it to you for $200? You should take that deal, right? Because it's trading in the market. There's millions of people looking at the price of Facebook, trying to determine if it's going to go up or down. The market is, the balance of supply and demand, the fair price, where it's trading in the market, the equilibrium, all the smart people, the hedge funds, the mutual funds, all, you smart people reading articles and trying to determine if Facebook is worth more or less. Today, when the market closed, it was $309. Right? So if someone tells you, hey, I'll sell it to you at 250, it's like, well, you're giving me 59.34 versus what millions of other people, are trading it at. So you're just using data to place your bets. But anyways, so we loaded up one good bet. What I'll do is I'll just kind of refresh this. Did it move? No, it didn't move. But here we can see another play, right? So this is CSGO. So again, it's the MLB All-Star break. So we're obviously lighter on the MLB, but we found another line discrepancy. Do you have to know anything about this player? I mean, no, you don't. It's a huge line discrepancy. 35. I mean, imagine if DraftKings and FanDuel or two casinos had a 4-point difference in their NFL lines. You'd be like, whoa, that's crazy, right? So it's no different in esports, right? It's the exact same thing. The line is set at 35 versus 39 on two different sports books. So you want to take the under here, right? And you'd want to take the over on Prize Picks. Now, if you could only pick one, let's say I said, hey, but you can only pick one. You can only take one of these bets. What you probably want to do is you want to take the under on Underdog Fantasy, right? And the reason you want to do that is if you actually look at this other sports book called Parlay Play, and again, you can use my refer friend code. It's just Alex M, like literally my name, Alex M. They have an $100 deposit match. But you're going to see they have the line even lower than Prize Picks at 34.5. So, you could either middle it. You could take the under on Underdog Fantasy, right? And the over on Parlay Play. And then you have a 4.5 point middle, which is better than Prize Picks, right? Prize Picks has the line at 35. under or parlay plays at 34.5. So you're getting an extra half point of value if you play this on parlay play. So that's something, we could start to build a parlay play slip. But also what this indicates to us is like, hey, Prize Picks and parlay play, they're pretty close. They both have the line at 35, 34.5. So there's not a ton of sports books that post these esports lines. So if we could only pick one, are we going to take the under or the over? We'd want to pick the under, right? Because underdog fantasy is so far off from, and what a surprise. You can see they literally removed the line. They locked the line, which is really annoying, but that's how it goes sometimes. Did they literally remove this during my live stream? It's like we have an underdog employee watching because they're scared of losing money. I mean, they literally just removed this line as I was doing the live stream. But let's continue to go through, but you get the general concept. You would have preferred to have taken the under on underdog fantasy because this is the side that's kind of off, right? It's like if, you ask Warren Buffett and I don't know, whoever another smart investor is, like the two smartest people, what do you think this company should be valued at? And one guy says 35 million, the other guy says 34.5 million. Then the one that says 39 seems to be the farthest off. So you're just using data, you're using market information to kind of form bets, right? And the data never lies, which is great about it. Because I say, a lot of people like to bet with their gut, and that's great. And maybe you have success with it, and that's great. Like, don't want to take away from people who do that, but that's what most sports bettors do, right? And it doesn't work for most sports bettors. That's why Prize Picks is in business, because most people are betting with their gut. So what we can do is we can go back to League of Legends, though, and now we have another line discrepancy. So I'll get rid of this, right? Because underdog fantasy moved the line. Sportsbooks can move lines at any time. They can be watching the live stream. Who knows, right? But you can see right here, we have another full point line discrepancy, right? 4.5 versus 5.5. Imagine an NFL total was 45 versus 55. It's a really big difference, right? That we're not talking about 210 points versus 210 half in an NBA game. We're talking about 45 versus 55, like a 20% increase. So this is a really big line discrepancy. So we want to take the under on Prize Picks, and we want to take the over on underdog fantasy. And then we can go to the next one. And it seems like Prize Picks in general, their models are giving you a lot of value on these unders versus underdog fantasy, right? It seems like in general, at least so far today, these esports lines, and again, like if you were betting on the WNBA, same concepts apply. It doesn't matter, right? Like what sport you're betting on, middles are really, you can look it up. You can look at other really smart sports bettors and their YouTube channels. People who actually make money have done this long term. People talk about middle betting, right? You're capitalizing on inefficiencies in the market. All these books, they all want to set lines independently. They all want to be unique. So you're just capitalizing on their differences in odds. So unfortunately, what we're not going to be able to do is take this play on trigger. And the reason is, well, I can just show you, is on underdog fantasy, you can only play one player in esports from the same team. And the reason is two players from the same team are positively correlated to, both go over. So in other words, if this in League of Legends, if a guy on BKRE who Sazekalad is on, if this guy goes over, then Trigger, his teammate, is also more likely to go over. So it's kind of like in the NFL, just as an example, if you take Justin Burrow, or if you take Joe Burrow over passing touchdowns, a correlated bet would be Jamar Chase over receiving touchdowns. They're on the same team. Jamar Chase is his main target. So if Joe Burrow has a gangbuster season and he throws for 50 passing touchdowns, then Jamar Chase probably went over. So it would make sense to take both players' overs together. But you can see on underdog fantasy, we can't include two players from the same team. So it's like, okay, whatever. I'll move on to the next one, Jexla. So we can take a look at, we'll go back to esports, and we can see here any players on the same team. Nope. And then we can go back here and we can just say, okay, we want to take his under, and I'll remove this play on trigger. So now we have 3 really good middles, right? 1 point gaps on all these plays, right? So pretty good, right? Underdog Fantasy has a line at 30. Imagine they had, Luca's line at 30 and Prize Picks were at 40. That's a huge discrepancy. It's the exact same thing here. So we're day trading sports. Like, a lot of people think like, oh, this is just handicapping. This isn't, it's not really handicapping. This is more just like identifying market inefficiencies, placing bets with an edge. So we can see here, we have our 4th pick, right? So I don't think I already bet this guy, Grizzly. Did I already bet him? So they may not let me bet it again. Unfortunately, both of these platforms, well, we can actually see, did I even place this bet? So I did. So I already placed this one middle, and Underdog Fantasy has a max of, I'll just show you. They have a max of $250 on each eSports player. So they're going to say, hey, you've already hit your limit. You can't bet on Grizzly again. So it's like, okay, I'll remove Grizzly. So I still have 3 plays. So then we can go to the next homie, who's Young Jay. So we can pull him up. And we can see, are there any benefits of taking this play? So his line is 5 on Prize Picks. He's on KDF versus Bro. So we don't have any players from, this game here. So it's literally just the same thing. Like, there's nothing complicated going on here. We now have 4, like Underdog Fantasy, these sports books have pretty good models, pretty complex models. But again, they all want to be unique. If Prize Picks and Underdog had the exact same lines, we wouldn't need Prize Picks and Underdog. We would only need one of them. That's why they set lines independently. So their models are clearly out of sync because right now someone's screwing up, right? And there's only 2 sports books posting League of Legends lines. So I'm not taking an opinion on, hey, who's smarter, who's stupider. It's not what I'm doing. It's kind of like if you have one friend who's like, yo, I'll buy your car, or I'll buy Facebook stock for $250. And then your other friend's like, I'll buy it for $350. You buy it from your one friend for $250, you sell it for $350. You don't have to have an opinion on the underlying asset on the stock. You just have to know where people are valuing it. And it's the same thing here. You don't have to know anything about this homie, Young Jay. All you know is Underdog, their model is spitting out 4 and Prize Picks is at 5. And that's a really big discrepancy. That's a huge discrepancy, right? Enough easily to cover the VIG, to cover the juice. So we can just keep going. Why make it more complicated than it is? So we can keep going and we can go to the next play. And it's Karis. And I want to make sure I didn't type in anything wrong, no execution error. So we want to take his under on Prize Picks. No, his under on Underdog. And then we want to take his over on Prize Picks. So this is Bro. Anyone playing Bro? So here we actually have an added benefit, right? So I'm going to lock this in a sec. So if you want to bet this, feel free to bet it. I'm not saying it's guaranteed to win. I say this in every video, or at least I try to, and I try to make it clear, and I, try to showcase this is, I have losing streaks, I have winning streaks, but the whole point is just like, of these videos is just kind of trying to show you how to get an edge over the sports books. So you can see I have 4 overs: Sezekalad, Jezu, Jexla, Young Jay, and Karis. And then on Prize Picks, I have, the opposite picks, but with value. So another benefit to mention is these players are on opposing teams, right? Young Jay is on a different team than Karis. So in League of Legends, kind of like, Jamar Chase and what's his name? Joe Burrow are positively correlated to both go over. Jamar Chase in receiving touchdowns, Joe Burrow in passing touchdowns. If Joe Burrow has a really good season, if he goes over, then Jamar Chase is more likely to go over. In esports, players on opposing teams, right, are more likely to go over and under together. So in other words, if Karis goes over, then Young J is more likely to go under. So this slip has the added benefit of correlation. And it's the same thing here, right? If Young J goes over, then Karis is more likely to go under. So I don't know if that makes sense, but we have the added benefit here of correlation, right? Because Underdog Fantasy, they're not going to change our payout. Like, this is a platform where any 5-leg parlay, you're always getting a 20x payout, right? Any 5-leg parlay is a 20x payout. You're betting 10 to win 200. Doesn't matter if you take the over, doesn't matter if you take the under. But in this case, if Young J goes over, we know Karis is more likely to go under. So we actually have an added benefit here, a positive correlation, because on Underdog Fantasy, you're always getting the exact same payout. So Underdog Fantasy doesn't account for correlation. All they do to account for correlation is they don't let you bet on players from the same team, but players from opposing teams can also have positive correlation in eSports, right? One player, his teammate, if you're taking, this one player's over, the person on the opposing team is more likely to go under. That's just how League of Legends works. You can go do your own research and have a bunch of eSports guys explain it to you. But taking advantage of some positive correlation. So I'm going to lock this in on Prize Picks, on Underdog Fantasy, solid middle, and I'll hit it for the max I can, right? So Underdog Fantasy has a maximum stake of $250. So 4 overs, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1 under, and I'm going to lock it in 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to hit the under. They move lines, sometimes pretty quickly. It seems like after I bet it, I don't know if they're scared of me, whatever it is, but regardless, I went ahead and I locked in this. So you can see we have a middle bet on. Nothing super complicated, right? Like, you could do this for the WNBA. It literally doesn't matter. The sport doesn't matter. Like, this is just following data, taking advantage of inefficiencies in the market. And it's not super glamorous, but hey, it works and it makes money. You're not going to win every bet, but it's how you make money long term. So then we could go to, parlay play. So then you can check out another sports book and see, hey, are there any discrepancies? So you can see in general, it seems like in these CSGO lines, as well as the Valorant line. So if you take a look here, it seems like Underdog Fantasy is the side that's really off. So for example, if you look at this Nacho guy in CSGO, so we can go to Underdog Fantasy, right? So you could middle this, but if you look at Prize Picks, right? Prize Picks has this guy's line. Nope. So if we go to CSGO, so Prize Picks has this guy's line at 38.5. Underdog is 41, right? So imagine there were only 3 sports books: BetMGM, Caesars, and DraftKings. BetMGM has an NFL game at 41 points. FanDuel and DraftKings have it at 38.5. Well, it's 2 versus 1. So what that indicates to you, as a sharper bettor, following the data, is just, hey, 41 seems too high. The 2 other sports books with their really complicated models that they've invested millions of dollars into, they have access to betting volume. They're moving around lines. Seems like 41 is too high. So you'd want to take the under. So, nothing super complicated, but what am I trying to say? Where's this Nacho guy? Nacho. So let's go here to CSGO, and then let me just search him. So his line is 38.5 on Prize Picks. His line on Parlay Play, 38.5. Underdog Fantasies at 41, 2.5 points higher. Seems like they're screwing up. Seems like there's value on the under. So the first play we could take is Nacho under 38.5, right? So 2.5 point discrepancy. Then here we have another 2.5 point one. Consti, his line is 35 on Underdog. It's 37.5 on Prize Picks as well as Parlay Play, right? So that's what it's saying. Parlay Play, because I'm on the Parlay Play tab. They have his line at 37.5. Underdog's lower at 35, right? So in this case, we would want to take his over, right? So we can go back here. So you can see, right, his line is higher on Prize Picks and on Parlay Play. So their models are in sync with one another. Both really big sports books. Prize Picks, obviously, a little, the biggest of all, probably the smartest of all. They have the most resources, the most betting volume. Because again, sports books will move around lines due to supply and demand. So if everyone starts hammering this guy's over, right, all these sharp bettors, syndicates, whatever, if everyone starts hammering his over, just like if everyone starts buying a stock, all the smart hedge funds and everyone wants to buy a stock, the price is going to go up, right? It's just there's more demand than supply. Action's only coming in on one side, which is why, a lot of people will look at historical data and they'll be like, hey, you didn't even watch the last game, right? This Consti guy, he only had 20 kills last game, right? But it's like, it doesn't matter because historical information is already baked into the market. It's just like if you look up, the price of Tesla stock, it bakes in all the good news and the bad news released about Tesla. Like it's all priced into the market. Any public information is priced into the market. So, and maybe it's not perfect, but in general, you get the point. Like when you're following data, you're not going to win every bet. That's not the point. The point is, this is just like logical, data-driven sports betting. So who do we have next? So next we have Brolin over 35.5. So Prize Picks and Prize Picks and Parlay Play have his line at 35.5. Underdog has his line at 37.5, right? So what we may want to do, though, is just be like, okay, this isn't a middle, right? This last play, we're hedged, right? So this play right here, like every single one of these plays, because we're getting line discrepancies, we're always going to win. So let me reload this. We're always going to win at least one of these bets, right? So for Jesu over 4.5 and Jesu under 5.5, like we're always going to win either the under 5.5 or the over 4.5, right? But if he has exactly 5, then we're going to win both bets. That's where the edge comes from. That's where the advantage comes from because we found a line discrepancy. But we're never going to lose both bets, right? So middle betting is less risky, right? Because again, you're always going to win for each of these plays. You're either going to win both bets or you're going to win one bet and lose one bet. That's the advantage of middles. For Karras, we're taking his under 5.5 and his over 4.5. So we're always going to win the over 4.5 or the under 5.5. It's just if he has exactly 5, then we're going to win both bets. So what we can do is maybe we want to play this one, the CSGO play. It's a little more risky, whatever. Maybe you want to play it a little smaller, right? And again, like another thing to mention is for CSGO, like compared to, let's say, the MLB, there's less sports books posting lines. So you should be less confident. So what I mean by that is you can imagine if FanDuel, so let's take a look at this play on Nacho. We're taking his under 41 on underdog, right? And the reason we're taking it is because the two other sports books in the market have the line significantly lower at 38.5, right? But imagine if both FanDuel, DraftKings, if all these other sports books also had eSports lines and they all had Nacho's line at 38.5, then you'd have, the word is confidence, you'd have more confidence, right? There's more data points, more of these sophisticated sports books like FanDuel, whatever, and they're all telling you his line's at 38.5, underdogs at 41. So if FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, Caesars, everyone posted eSports lines, they all had his line at 38.5, you'd have more confidence to take the under. But unfortunately, right now, not a ton of, sports books have eSports lines. What's up, guys? What's up, guys? What's up, guys? Nah, so Prize Picks, I've thought about this, but Prize Picks, sometimes it's the opposite, right? So I'm going to lock this in. If anyone wants to tail, I'm going to lock this in. And again, they seem to move lines pretty fast after things start to get bet. Or if they have a customer flagged, I think they auto remove some lines and I seem to be flagged. So we'll see how it goes. Let me know if you can still bet that if you didn't bet it. But what was I going to say? Sometimes parlay plays the much bigger discrepancy. Um, Yo, no, this isn't pre-recorded. I I have no idea about NHA. My money's in NHA, so I have no idea. Yo, what's up, guys? Sorry for not looking earlier. Just locked in an underdog 4 pick. Um, they could. It's completely true, but no, this isn't. This isn't live recorded. I have a Mac. What's up, guys? What's up, guys? What's up, guys? Any updates on when OddsJam? So we just added eSports. We're focused on the mobile app right now. So like the iPhone app, the Android app, but we're going to add golf. Esports took a bit longer than expected, but hopefully, whether you've had success since we launched it yesterday or not, like there's some pretty big line discrepancies, obviously, in esports. So I'm sure, you'll find every single night, if you're searching for it, you will find huge middles, right? Prize Picks drops League of Legends lines around 6 p.m. It seems like 6 p.m. Pacific time. And there are some pretty huge middles. Like you can see here, Star Screen 2.5, 3.5, right? These are, imagine a NBA player's line. Luka 25 versus 35. That is an insanely big discrepancy. Just take the under 3.5, take the over 2.5. You're not going to win every single middle, but trust me, long term, you're going to make a lot of money in middle betting. Of course, like make sure the discrepancy is big enough. I want to make that clear, right? Like 210 versus 211 points in an NBA game is a lot different than 2.5 versus 3.5 kills in an esports match. You should be thinking about 2.5 versus 3.5 kills in an esports game, like 25 versus 35 points for a player in an NBA game. It's really big. You have to think on a percentage basis. But anyways, no, this isn't pre-recorded. But anyways. Yep, League of Legends betting is a thing. I know these middles are insane. So when you're doing middles, so on Prize Picks, I always play 5 flex. So you're going to see like all these plays I'm locking in general, 5 or 6 flex are kind of optimal in terms of the payouts. On Underdog Fantasy for 5 pick, it doesn't matter. 3 pick, it's no insurance, and for 4 pick you want to use insurance. So I also have, I'll just share this here in the chat, and maybe this is useful. So let me share this screen, and then we'll go back to finding some bets. Maybe we'll find some stuff, maybe we won't. So you can see here, this just kind of explains like how many plays are optimal on each of these, platforms like Prize Picks, No House Advantage, which I'll get to in a second, Prize Picks, whatever. So I'll put this in here. How many picks is optimal on each platform? But on Underdog, I generally play 3 pick entries. And the reason I generally play 3 pick entries is it's easier to find 3 picks as opposed to 5. So if you're not getting an additional benefit for playing 5 picks, then it doesn't really matter. But on, Prize Picks, 2 picks and 3 picks are literally horrible. And there's an article I wrote about this as well, which I'll just share in here, which may be easier. And it definitely explains more than a crappy little PowerPoint. But this kind of explains like why on Prize Picks it's optimal to go with 5 pick entries or 6 pick entries. But the answer here is no. This, I have no idea. I assume so. It's a sports book, but I have money in NHA, and I didn't have that much money in NHA, but it seems like they just went out of business and have been pretty silent, but I have no idea. I've tried emailing support, though. I have no idea what happened to NHA. No idea what happened to NHA. So I'm waiting for updates as well because I have some money in there. But I highly doubt it's lost. I think it just the company may be going out of business and figuring it out. I literally don't think it's legal to just steal money from a bunch of people. Like, I assume that has to break 55 laws in the United States, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before about things, so I could be wrong here. So you can see there's a lot more discrepancies on Prize Picks Underdog Fantasy. You could hit middles all day long. This Grizzly play is still available. This Trigger play, nothing complicated. Like, I don't want to dwell and just go over the same thing over and over, but you kind of get the point. It's like, I never bet with my gut. I'm just kind of like always following this data, just kind of trying to find these inefficiencies in the market. When I can find positive correlation, like we did right here, KDF and Bro are on opposite teams. So one under, one over are positively correlated. That's an added benefit, but can't always find, really strong or whatever. But it's the same thing for this slip, right? Like, I looked for positive correlation, kind of got a little bump here. So you can see these players are on opposing teams, one over, one under. That's what you want to do. When esports players are on opposing teams, you want to take one over and one under. Kind of like, again, if you're taking Patrick Mahomes over, probably makes sense to take Travis Kelce over. So same thing here, right? Positive correlation. These players are on opposing teams. If Grizzly goes over, then BDD is more likely to go under. So again, you don't need OddsJam. There are not a lot. There's 2 products. I mean, Daily Grind Fantasy is another site that is just data-driven, kind of shows line discrepancies, just like OddsJam, but works in kind of a different way, presents data in a different way, and they don't do sports books. Like OddsJam obviously, has sports books as well, like Flip, shows value on sports books, but Daily Grind Fantasy is just prize picks. But like, you can, if you are a casual sports bettor and you just want to do this when you have time, like, trust me, if you start out just looking for esports lines, looking for inefficiencies, line differences in the market, you'll make some good money middle betting. And then I think you'll, realize, like a lot of people do, like, wow, I can actually make some money on these sports books. They're beatable when you start seeing the line discrepancies for yourself. Like when I started sports betting, I would literally just get home from work, pull up the sports books and look for big discrepancies and try to pounce on them. And you can do that. It just takes more time. So we can see, are there any plays on Fliff or anything like that? Nope. So I had a soccer play earlier that I gave out on Twitter, but regardless, we can go back here. We can reload this. So if you want to take a screenshot, whatever, there's clearly some esports line discrepancies, CSGO, Valorant, League of Legends. Again, if you're playing players from the same team, you want to take them both to go over. If you're playing players on opposing teams, one over, one under in League of Legends, as well as Dota, DOTA, whatever that league is. I did some research into it, talked to a lot of people who bet on Dota, looked into some of the articles about it, and that's how correlation works in League of Legends as well as Dota. Players on opposing teams, one over, one under. Players on the same team, both overs or both unders. So trying to think what else. So again, like typically the best middles you're going to find are when sportsbooks first release odds. So for example, some of these crazy line discrepancies, wow, a lot of plays open. So like Starscreen, this one was the best of all. Ekas under 2.5 and his over 1.5. A lot of times you'll see these plays when esports lines first start being released, right? Prize Picks is releasing lines. Their models are spitting out lines. Underdog Fantasy too. No sharp bettors have, been able to hit anything yet. So there will be some inefficiencies in the market. And what you'll notice is as the night goes on, as we get closer to tomorrow, so these games, are from 1 a.m. ranging to, like 1 p.m. tomorrow, is all of these good bets will go away, right? Sportsbooks, maybe Prize Picks goes down. Where's an example? Like probably what will, if you look tomorrow, is Prize Picks will have Ekas's line at 2. So they'll move his line higher because they were too low. And Underdog Fantasy will have moved his line lower to 2. And then the value goes away, right? The value goes away. It's kind of like if your friend told you, not to go back to the stupid example, but if your friend told you, hey, you can buy Facebook from me for $200, that's great. But if he comes back to you tomorrow and is like, hey, I'll let you buy it for $309, all the value went away. right? There's no value relative to the other data points in the market. So these are things where typically the earlier you are, it seems like for esports, there's some huge line discrepancies, and sometimes they're even bigger. I mean, this where is it? This Ekis one and this Star Screen one. I think Prize Picks initially had his line at 1, so they were at. I missed it, but Prize Picks was at 1. Underdog Fantasy was at 2.5. So that's like you know, imagine LeBron's line was 10 points on Prize Picks, 25 on Underdog. Like it's literally insane. But again, like typically these sports books start to come closer together as they realize they screwed up big time. So the earlier you can get on them, kind of the better. But anyways, we can come back here. I can find some middle picks. They may have, but again, like I don't think that's legal. I'm sure we'll get. Well, I don't want to say I'm sure because I don't think I've seen a sports book go out of business yet, or at least recently. So, but I'd be shocked if they can just run off with the money. So for Prize Picks and Underdog, what's the minimum EV percentage? It's explained in that article. Like on Prize Picks, you want 54.25%. So you can see like it seems like in CS:GO, Underdog is really the one slipping up, right? Like if you look at Underdog Fantasy and we look at their CS:GO lines, so let's just go to League, let's go to CS:GO, right? They're the ones that seem like they're really slipping up here. You know, this Nacho guy, 41 on Underdog, 38 half on Prize Picks and Parlay Play. Tender, 40 on Underdog, 37 on Prize Picks, 37 half on Parlay Play. So they seem like the discrepancy. And again, it would be even better if FanDuel, DraftKings were also posting lines and they also had this guy's line at 37. You know, it's kind of like if you ask, you know, 50 different people for advice. If they all give you the same advice, then probably pretty good advice. Whereas here, it's only 2 people, Prize Picks and Parlay Play, and they're smart. They've invested millions of dollars in their ability to set lines. But it would be great if we also had Prize or FanDuel, DraftKings, you know, these billion-dollar sports books that have a lot of employees and have invested a lot of money in their models, their ability to set lines. They take betting volume, they move around lines due to supply and demand. So the more sports books you have, the more confidence you should have. But it doesn't matter for a middle, right? Like for a middle, for this Ekis play, like we're hedged. We took his under 2.5. We took his over 1.5. That's a massive discrepancy, right? I'm not betting one side. I'm taking both sides. But for this play on Underdog Fantasy right here, where we're not middle betting, we're just, you know, you could middle bet this, but I'm not, is we're just taking advantage of one side. You know, obviously you don't have a ton of confidence because again, there's not a ton of sports books posting lines on esports in general. There's only 3 sports books currently. Sometimes some other sports books do, but you can see right here, right now, there's only 3 sports books posting esports lines, which is why I prefer to middle it. Because again, with a middle, it doesn't matter who's right, who's wrong. It's just a massive discrepancy. It's like your friend sells you something for $250, you turn around, you sell it to your other friend for $350. You don't even have to know what you just bought and what you just sold. You know, you bought it for $250, you sold it for $350, you made $100. So that's essentially what you're doing when you're middle betting, right? You're just saying, I don't know anything about this Ekis guy. I just know Underdog has the line at 2.5. Prize Picks has his line at 1.5. That's a huge discrepancy. I'm going to take the over 1.5. I'm going to take the under 2.5. Whereas this play, we're actually like taking an opinion. We're saying, hey, we think Prize Picks, Parlay Play, the 2 other data points, they have, you know, Nacho's line at 37.5 or whatever it was. Like we think, based on that information, we should take the under on Underdog Fantasy. So we can reload this again. Maybe there's some plays, maybe there's not. Big. So big in terms of percentage. Yeah. Well, I mean, they wouldn't, but anyone can email me and I'll hit you up with a discount or whatever. No problem. My email is just alex@oddsjam.com. So yeah, the middles are plus EV. Again, you want to consider how big is the middle, but 1.5 versus 2.5 is a no-brainer. 3.5 versus 4.5 is a no-brainer. But again, in an NBA game, 210 versus 211 probably wouldn't make sense to middle on Prize Picks and Underdog because you're still paying the vig. But, let's say in the NBA, LeBron 15 versus 25.5 points would be a big enough middle where it's clearly worth it. And that's kind of how you should think about esports. So we can go back here. Yeah, so for traditional sports books, you don't want to use the fantasy optimizer. I'm currently in California, so I've mainly been focused on the fantasy optimizer. But you can see there's 200 sports books on OddsJam. There's already bets on FanDuel. This is just the positive EV tool. So, I'm initially from Virginia, which has legal sports betting. So FanDuel, DraftKings. So I spend, probably most of my time in Virginia. And basically the tool I use most is the positive EV tool because, again, most of these fantasy sites, Underdog Fantasy, it's technically a fantasy site. It's not legal in a lot of states that have sports betting like FanDuel, which is kind of weird, but there's this like fantasy versus sports betting war. FanDuel is a sports book. Underdog Fantasy is technically a fantasy site. They work in slightly different ways. Like on Underdog Fantasy, for example, there's no odds, right? Like when you look at FanDuel, there's a bunch of numbers. So if we go to like WNBA, there's a bunch of odds. There's a bunch of numbers. On Underdog Fantasy, there's no odds. There's no numbers. It's just lines. On Underdog Fantasy, you can't just bet on one play. This is parlay-only sportsbook. So if I just want to bet on Royce White under 11 points, it tells me, hey, you got to place at least 2 picks. So these platforms work in different ways, but when I'm betting regularly, I'm just using the positive EV tool. So when I'm in Virginia, for example, a sports book I place a lot of bets on is Bet365. This is known to be one of the dumbest, squarest sports books, however you want to think about it. Like you can see here, they're giving you Brentford plus 0.25 at minus 105 odds. And here, right, it's not like esports. You have literally dozens of data points telling you where this line should be set. They're all, like around minus 125, DraftKings minus 140. So it's clear as day. Brentford plus 0.25 Asian handicap should be heavily favored around like minus 125 odds. Bet365 has it minus 105. So that would be a really good bet if you have access to Bet365. But again, in the US, certain sports books are legal in certain states. Every state has different sports books. So maybe you have access to Bet365, maybe you don't. But the same concepts apply. Find value in the market, whatever. And mainly just the tool I use is the positive EV tool. So Fliff is good, but I don't see any bets on Fliff right now. I hit this bet again earlier on Fliff, but there's no bets right now. But anyways, there's some good esports middles. I'm going to call it a day for now. Hopefully this was helpful. Anyone can email me with any questions about, sports betting in general, whatever. I'll try to help out if I know the answer. If not, I'll tell you I don't know the answer. Thanks so much for your time.